Welcome back to What I Read. Every week I feature the latest book that I am consuming, sometimes by Audible, sometimes by actually reading a physical book. And this week I'd like to introduce you to my good friend here, which is called How to Work a Room. And this is an excellent book that I really think everyone should read. You know, a lot of people think that just because I interview people kind of for a living, and that I've, for London Real, interviewed probably 300 people at this point, that by definition I am A, extremely social, or B, extremely good at communicating with people I never met. But that's really not the case. I'm actually quite a little bit of an introverted guy. Sometimes I can be a little quiet, and I've done some videos about that in the past. And so actually working a room is something that's taken me a long time to learn how to do, and I always think I can be better at it and better at everything I do, really. And so this has a lot of amazing tips on how to do it. And to just give you a little bit of history, what I used to do was, when I was in the city, I was a broker, an interdealer broker. So my job really was to get really good relationships with the biggest and best derivative traders in the city, whether you worked at JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs or Banque Nationale Paribas or wherever, or Deutsche Bank. And so a lot of times I would be out, I would be being social, and I would really just trying to be building relationships. And so it was really practice that just got me used to meeting people cold, establishing relationships with them. And this book, you know, really hits it home with some really, really great lessons, because, you know, a lot of us have events that we know we need to go to, but you walk into a room and you don't know anyone there. And there probably isn't many things more terrifying, because, you know, socially, a lot of times we go with friends, we go with a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a husband or a wife, and we have a little bit of backup, you know, when you go out. And, you know, that can be comforting, but that also can really hurt you, because sometimes if you go with someone you know, then you end up just kind of attaching yourself to them the whole night, and you find out that you really weren't being social at all. And so it's important, and I always encourage people to go solo to these events, and because that's where you're going to get the most growing, you're going to meet the most people. So a few lessons from this book that I really loved, and one that I think I mentioned before, is, first of all, act like the host. And that sounds kind of strange, but it's funny, like when I have like a birthday celebration or something like that, I am the host. And so I walk around and I say, how are you doing? You having a good time? You should meet this person. You should meet that person. And it ends up being a great night for me and a great night for everyone else. And so if you go to an event and, you know, you don't know anyone, act like the host. Walk up to people and say, hey, how are you? You know, oh, where did you come from tonight? Okay, you know, I hope you're having a really good time. And just pretend like you're the host, and you'll take that frame, and then people will look at you and they'll be like, oh, wow, this person's really cool, really plugged in. A good friend of mine that does this really well is Mr. James Dawson from the Humble Grape. And when he comes over to my house for like Thanksgiving and stuff, man, he just acts like the host. He'll be like, Brian, I got the wine, and he'll walk around and talk to people, and he'll like I said, pour their wine and do all this stuff. And like, he ends up just being socially just so amazing. So act like the host, that's a big one. The other one in there is have a plan. And I know that sounds a little crazy and can be a little bit, I don't know, you could say it's you know, like you're really like trying to be strategic and that kind of thing, but have a plan when you go to a social occasion, being like, okay, I want to try to meet X, Y, and Z and do this, this, and this. Now, that doesn't mean that you're running around the room passing out cards. Nobody likes that, and that doesn't get you anywhere, because you have to have a real interaction. But like, have a goal, and if there's someone there that you want to talk to, make sure you go and talk to them. Otherwise, you're going to spend the whole night like nursing a drink and avoiding people. And so go with an agenda. If I go to this meeting tonight, I would like to meet the host. I want to meet, you know, Boris Johnson if he's there, and I want to meet this guy and tell them who I am, and let them know that you can have a conversation and that you're cool and that you're a normal person and that kind of thing. So go with an agenda. I remember a Christmas party that we had in the city when I was a broker, and we went there and all of our clients were there and everyone's clients were there and everyone was having a good time. And I remember it was one of the girls in our back office, and she was like trying to get me to have a drink or like dance or something like that. And she saw me like thinking to myself, okay, I got to meet this person, I got to meet that person. And she's like, it's a party, just have fun. And I was like, no, this is a party for you, but for me, this is business. And so, I know maybe that sounds horrible, but, you know, a social occasion can be social, but you can also have a good time if you're there to try to figure out some business that you want to do. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. So have a plan. The other one that people always ask me for is, how do you eject yourself out of a conversation? Because sometimes you get bogged down with someone who just really wants to talk to you for the whole rest of the night, and it's just not a good use of your time. And there's a great suggestion from that book that says this: Make your point in the conversation. Don't wait for them to make their point. So they're talking, and then you said, yeah, I really agree with that the same. Then you say, it was so nice to meet you. Send me an email, brian@londonreal.tv, and I hope we can do something together. Bye. So eject yourself after you make a comment, and then just say something positive like send me an email and thank you very much, and then just go. And it's okay. It's okay to circulate at a party. People kind of know that these things happen. So those are a few tips. Also, I always say business happens face to face. People really want to see what you're like. They want to see you can hold a conversation, and you have a lot more to offer than you think you do. You might just thinking, oh, I'm just this person and I'm nothing to no one. If you can have a conversation with good energy and positive intentions, man, that's a lot. You're actually bringing a lot to the table. And the other thing to think when you go cold into this meetup is that you're all under the same roof for the same reason. And that's something that she mentions in the book, is that you might think you have nothing in common with these people, but actually you do. If you've gone to a tech meetup, it's because of that. If you're going to a conference, it's because of that. Even if you're going to a wedding, it's because you all know the same person. So there actually is a reason you're there in any social occasion, and you can kind of riff off that. The last part I would say is have an introduction, or even have a pitch. Now, it doesn't mean you have to go and pitch everyone your idea, but this is a great chance for you to practice your pitch and practice your ideas and practice telling someone who you are. And it could be simple as, hi, my name is Brian Rose. I'm the founder and host of London Real. We're a weekly video talk show that introduces you to the most fascinating people in the world. And then if they want to know more, then you could be like, oh, no problem. We've been doing this for 4 years. I've interviewed over 300 people, from rock stars to CEOs of billion-dollar companies, da-da-da-da-da-da. But have it ready and see how people react. If they glaze over and look around the room, well, then you got a shitty pitch. So work on it. And if people are like, oh, that's really interesting, or someone says, oh, that's a bad idea, free content, you're getting nowhere. And then you can think to yourself, okay, I need to change my business model. Or next time on the pitch, I say, everything's free, but that's the way it's going these days. And what we're really trying to do is have experiences or build the academy or something. So it's a great chance to practice, and we're all pitching something. We all need to pitch something. And so these occasions are perfect to practice. And again, go alone. Don't go with your wingman, because then you'll end up pitching to him or her all night, and you won't do what you really need to do about that. And it's funny, I just, a good buddy of mine's in the tech scene in New York City, and I just said to him, I'm like, dude, your pitch is something that you should hone and be constantly, delivering all the time. And the last thing I want to say is, I remember a social occasion. I went to the premiere of Jeff Thompson's movie, The Pyramid Text, and I got there and I saw that James Cosmo was in the corner, and I was like, I know that guy. He's from Braveheart, and I saw the movie, and he was there, and I was like, wow, I gotta talk to him. And I was thinking, I know Jeff Thompson. I can send him an email, and he might hook me up with James, but I was like, I need to go make an impression and at least introduce myself to him and say, look, I'm Brian Rose from London Real. I don't want to, I just wanted to say hello. I really love that, and I'd love to have you on the show sometime. I'll send you an email, da-da-da. But I knew that personal thing was important. But he was busy because he was the star of the show. So everybody was coming up to him and saying, we love your work. And it was an amazing movie, because it really was. And he's an amazing guy. But I just waited, and I sat around, and I talked to a few other people, and I was just like, I got to hang out for 30 more minutes until I can get the director to introduce me, or get Jeff to introduce me, or just go over cold. And so I waited, and then boom, I went over and introduced him and made that show happen. But he's old school guy. I don't even know if an email would have made that interview happen. So again, sometimes you got to really seize the day and take these social occasions to make things happen. And nothing's better than a good introduction and making a good impression, at least going out there and saying hello. A lot of people can't do that these days, especially with Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. They just send an email. Even Dan Pena says, anybody can email. It takes a real player to get on the phone and cold call, or to go up to someone and introduce yourself and say, hello, I'm this person. And that's, again, what a confident person does. And even the more high value person will always walk over and say, hey, hello, by the way, I'm Brian Rose, I host London Real. Why are you here? So be that person, become that person, and then people will be like, oh, wow, this person's really cool. I want to get to know him, that kind of thing. So there you go. Bring your business cards, but again, try to make those really important interactions. Think 5 people. Don't think 15 people at something like that, I don't think, or 50. That's crazy. Just think good, solid interactions, and think about who you want to meet kind of before you go there. So there you go. That's me. That's the book, How to Work a Room. Thank you very much to Susan for getting me to read that, and I will be having more on what I read. We might be coming up soon. Next week, I might be even talking a little bit of fiction with my man, Bret Easton Ellis, but we will see. Until then, peace. It's about the journey. Please leave your comments below and tell me some books you'd like to hear me review, or any other questions you have. Obviously, please hit the subscribe button. It makes the YouTube gods happy, which we are always wanting to make happy. And that's it. Take care, y'all, and have a good rest of the day. Peace.